Imagine inventing the future, and then watching it destroy you. That's the story of Kodak. For a century, they didn't just sell cameras. They helped us to hold on to our memories. Their little yellow boxes were in every home, at every birthday party. They were the untouchable giants that controlled 90% of their market. So how did it so nearly end in bankruptcy? The reason you've probably heard is only half the story, and the truth of their epic collapse is nothing compared to the bizarre, controversial plans they hatched to claw their way back from the grave. Plans that had almost nothing to do with taking pictures. George Eastman's vision was simple but revolutionary: make photography as easy as possible. Before Kodak, photography was a cumbersome process done only by professionals with bulky cameras and expertise in processing films. Then came Eastman's first camera, the Kodak camera. You bought it preloaded with enough film for 100 pictures, and once you were done, you mailed the entire camera back to Kodak in Rochester, where they developed the film, printed the photos, and sent it all back to you with a fresh roll of film inside. It was genius in its simplicity. Throughout the 20th century, Kodak was a relentless innovator. They introduced the Brownie camera in 1900, a simple box camera that cost just $1 and brought photography to the masses, including children. They were pioneers in color photography with Kodachrome film in 1935, which became legendary for its vibrant colors and how long the film lasted in storage. For decades, if you were taking a picture, chances are you were using a Kodak camera and Kodak film. By 1976, Kodak commanded an astonishing 90% of the film market and 85% of the camera market in the United States. It was a monopoly in everything but name, and the phrase "a Kodak moment" forever linked the brand with the idea of capturing life's precious moments. But within the walls of this corporate giant, a change was coming that would ultimately lead to its downfall. In 1975, a Kodak engineer called Steve Sasson created the first digital camera. It was a clunky device, the size of a toaster. It captured a 0.01 megapixel black and white image on a cassette tape and took 23 seconds to record it. It was hardly practical, but it was groundbreaking. When Sasson showed his invention to Kodak's executives, they weren't impressed. They loved the technology, but they saw it as a direct threat to their incredibly profitable film business. Their response, as Sasson later claimed, was basically, "That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it." You'll often hear that this was the beginning of the end for Kodak. You'll read about how ignoring Sasson's invention was a classic example of a company missing an opportunity, and then not adapting in time when other companies leapfrogged them with their own digital technology. But that's not the whole story. What really led to their downfall is much more complex. For a start, Kodak didn't entirely ignore digital technology. In fact, they kept working on it throughout the 1980s, spending over $5 billion on the project by 1993. That's the equivalent of $11 billion today. In 1986, they developed the first megapixel camera with a 1.3 megapixel sensor, and in 1994, they launched their first consumer digital camera, the Apple-produced QuickTake 100. The problem wasn't a lack of invention or rejecting digital completely. It was a failure of imagination and a crippling fear that digital might damage their current business. Kodak wanted to guide digital photography into a side role as a companion to film photography, not its replacement. Their plan was to use digital to sell more prints, developing technologies like the photo CD, which stored film photos digitally, and creating photo printing kiosks for retail stores. They didn't know it at the time, but they were trying to fit a revolutionary square peg into an out-of-date round hole. While Kodak was hedging its bets, its competitors were going all in on digital. Companies like Sony, Canon, and Fuji embraced the new technology, creating cheaper, better, and more user-friendly digital cameras. The big turning point came in the early 2000s, when the quality of digital cameras became almost as good as film, while at the same time, the price of digital cameras dropped low enough to compete with film. Consumers loved the new technology, being able to see their photos instantly, cut the bad ones, and share them online without ever having to buy a roll of film or pay for developing was a game changer. Kodak's film sales, the bedrock of its profits for a century, began to plummet. The company was caught in a painful transition. For a time, it was still the biggest seller of digital cameras in the US, but their lucrative razor and blades model of selling cheap cameras to fuel expensive film, which then led to printing sales, still made profit. The digital side of the business was losing money, some of it through bad business decisions. When the fall came, it wasn't swift. It took over a decade. In 1996, they had a reported market cap of $31 billion. By the following year, their shares had dropped from over $90 a share to around $68. By 2001, their overall income was down by 48%, leading to a round of big layoffs. In 2004, the company announced it would stop selling film cameras and focus more on a transition to digital, a move that shocked the industry and its own employees. It led to another massive round of layoffs, dropping nearly 15,000 people from their workforce. Their stock price, once one of the more stable stocks on the market, began a long and painful slide. In December 2010, after more than 70 years as a part of the S&P 500 index, Kodak was delisted. By late 2011, the writing was on the wall. The company was bleeding cash, and its attempts to find new revenue streams mostly failed. For example, a major bet on inkjet printers, meant to replace the profits from photo printing, didn't gain a significant market share. Then they tried litigation, suing rivals like Apple and RIM, the maker of BlackBerry phone, for patent infringement. While some of these suits brought in cash, their loss against Apple and RIM in July 2012 was a major blow. Many saw it as a desperate act by a desperate company. Then, directors began to resign, and rumors of bankruptcy began to circulate. By January 14, 2012, their shares had slid to just 36 cents each. Then, on January 19, 2012, Eastman Kodak filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The fall from grace was complete. Kodak was fighting for its life. The bankruptcy was a painful and complex process. Kodak sold off many of its valuable digital imaging patents for $525 million, a fraction of the billions of dollars they were once estimated to be worth. Then they ceased production of digital cameras, pocket video cameras, and digital picture frames in February 2012. They also spun off their personal imaging and document imaging businesses into a new company, Kodak Alaris, which would be owned bizarrely by its UK pension plan. On September 3, 2013, Kodak officially emerged from bankruptcy, a much smaller company, but leaner and focused on commercial printing technology and enterprise services. They had a second chance, but the road to recovery would be long and uncertain. If you want more details about this story, take a look at my deep dive newsletter linked below. In the years that followed their bankruptcy, Kodak struggled to find its footing under new CEO Jeff Clark, who took over in 2014. There were some small glimmers of hope as they tried everything they could think of, but they were always followed by setbacks. For example, in 2016, they launched a smartphone supposedly aimed at photographers, the Kodak Ektra. But after bad publicity and confusion about who it was really aimed at, almost nobody bought it. Then came a bizarre and ill-fated pivot into the world of cryptocurrency. In 2018, the company announced KodakCoin, alongside a new image rights management platform, KodakOne. The coin was described in a statement as a photocentric cryptocurrency to empower photographers and agencies to take greater control in image rights management. The announcement sent the stock price soaring, but the coin was widely criticized as a publicity stunt and quietly faded away. Then, in July 2022, came the most unexpected twist in the Kodak saga. The US government announced it was providing Kodak with a $765 million loan to produce ingredients for generic drugs under the Defense Production Act in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a strange move that seemed to come out of nowhere. The company's stock price skyrocketed from $2.62 per share to $60 per share in just 2 days, turning Kodak into a meme stock and attracting a new wave of retail investors. But the deal was mired in controversy. Allegations of insider trading and questions about the company's lack of experience in pharmaceuticals led to the loan being put on hold. The stock price crashed back to earth, and an investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission followed. While a government watchdog later found no evidence of wrongdoing by Kodak themselves, the deal never materialized and the moment passed. As of late 2025, despite rumors to the contrary, Kodak is still here, a testament to the enduring power of its brand. The company now focuses on its core businesses of commercial printing, advanced materials, and chemicals. There's even been a small resurgence of interest in film photography among younger generations, a niche market that Kodak is happy to serve. But the company is a shell of its former self. Its revenues are a fraction of what they were at its peak, and despite a recent share jump, it continues to face the challenges of a rapidly changing technological landscape. The story of Kodak is a cautionary tale, a lesson in what happens when a company becomes so successful that it grasps hold of the future, even when it invents it. It's a story about how the dangers of complacency and the difficulty of letting go of the past, even when the answer is staring you right in the face. Could Kodak ever truly rise again? It's a long shot, but in a story as full of twists and turns as this one, you can never say never. After all, everyone loves a comeback story, so maybe we'll see a final, unexpected Kodak moment. To see how another corporate giant stumbled in the face of innovation, check out this video on the rise and fall of Forever 21.